So we're on Daf Yud Dalid, second line. So the Gemara before just finished revising the machlekes between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara finds a support for that version in a braysa. Tanina mihachi hakoyre es Shema. If you're reading Shema, upaga by Rabbi Igadol Hemenu, and you bump into your Rebbe or someone greater than you, biprakim, if it's in between paragraphs, shoel mipnei hakavod, you can ask him how he's doing. Bein tzarach leimer shu meishiv, and it goes without saying that you can respond if he asks you, if he says hello to you. Ube'emtza, and if you're not in between the paragraphs, you're actually in the paragraph itself, shoel mipnei hayira, you can only ask if it's a matter of yira, like a king. Bein tzarach leimer shu meishiv, and you can certainly answer again if the king says hello, div Rabbi Meir. So there's no difference, according to Rabbi Meir at least, between the in-between spots or in the paragraph itself. Those are the rules according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Omer be'emtza, if it's in the paragraph itself, shoel mipnei hayira, you can ask if it's a matter of fear, like a king, umeishiv mipnei hakavod, but to respond, you go down a step according to Rabbi Yehuda. Even to a Rebbe, a Rav, whatever, then for kavod you can respond, but you wouldn't be able to initiate the hello if you're in the middle of the paragraph. Ubeprakim, and in between, according to Rabbi Yehuda, shoel mipnei hakavod, you can initiate it if there's kavod involved, a Rebbe, a Rav, umeishiv l'kashalom l'kol adam, and when it comes to response, you go down a step, so that's to everybody. Bo minei achi tana debei Reb Chia mi Reb Chia. So he asked the following question: Behalal uv'megillah mahu shiapsik. What about when you're saying Hallel, like let's say on Rosh Chodesh or other times we say Hallel, or for Kriyas and Megillah on Purim, right? So what's the halacha there? Could you also stop when you're bumping into kings and rebbes and other people? So Kal v'chomer, you can make the following Kal v'chomer: Kriya Shema da'iraisa paisek, Kriya Shema, which is mina Torah to mitzvah to say Kriya Shema every day, twice a day. Halal derabanan, mibaya halal, which is always just derabanan. So maybe it should be for sure okay to make these disruptions. Oidilma persumei nisa adif. Halal and Megillah are not just the mitzvah derabanan. There's a persumei nisa element. So maybe in that way they're superior to Kriya Shema, and you're not supposed to make any interruptions. Malay poisek vein bekach klum. So he says it's fine. So he goes with the first argument, the kal v'chomer, that this is da'iraisa, then derabanan, it's certainly okay. Omer Rabba yamim shayachid gomer behenes halal.
You didn't interrupt Megillah.
Yeah, well, I guess you wouldn't have the prakim situation. It would only be considered be'emtza. So whatever is okay be'emtza is in the paragraph itself, as opposed to in between the paragraphs. So it would all be considered one long be'emtza. So the halacha, let's say according to Yehuda, be'emtza was, it depends if you're initiating or you're responding. You can only initiate it if it's a king, it's yira, and then you can respond only for a kavod. So if you're reading the Megillah, listening would be more of a problem, because then you're going to miss a few words, and then then you're going to get into trouble. Right. But if you're reading it, so then for some reason the rabbi comes over to you in the middle of reading the Megillah, and he says hello, then I guess you should respond. But probably it's not going to happen too often. What?
So they have Yira for the I don't know about your life.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's more likely for Megillah he's probably drinking with you.
Yeah, exactly.
How wouldn't usually happen.
Right. Fine. So according to the first opinion, no problem. Rabba, Yamim shayachid gaimer behenes halal. So for halal, he makes a distinction. If it's days that you complete the halal, so we don't do like not Rosh Chodesh. So let's say on Sukkot and the first 2 days on Pesach. So those days where you complete the halal, bein perek leperek poisek, be'emtza perek eina paisek. So in between the paragraphs, because each mizmor is a different paragraph, so in between the paragraphs, fine. But in the paragraph itself, there's no hafsaka. You can't make any interruptions. But in days like Rosh Chodesh that you don't finish the Hallel, afilu be'emtza haperek poisek. Even in the paragraph itself, it's okay because you don't have the same obligation to say Hallel. It's more of a minhag that we say Hallel on those days.
Probably you're in shul on those days where you finish the Hallel, or you do the whole Hallel. You're probably in shul anyways. And here you're not in
So
shul.
you're saying you shouldn't be talking in shul anyway.
Yeah, but you're not. Someone's not coming over. Yeah. You're not going to fear anybody there anyway. You're not
Sure
coming.
gonna come over.
The king's not coming.
The king might walk in.
Somebody's going to interrupt.
Yeah. Eini. Is this true? V'harav bar shava iklo legabe dervina v'yam sheni yachid gaimer sahalal haval. It was one of the days that you don't finish the halal v'loy pasiklei, and he didn't stop to say hello. So this was another Talmud Chacham. So the Gemara says shiny Rav bar shava delei chashiv le dervina, because to Ravina, Rav bar shava is just an ordinary person relative to Ravina. So it was, I guess, same madrega or less. So there was no covet or yira issue involved. What?
With a colleague.
A colleague. Boy mine ashiyan tana debei Rav Ami mirav Ami. He asked, Hashari b'tainis ma'oshi yitayim. A person who's in the middle of a fast, are you allowed to taste? Like you want to taste the soup to see if it needs some salt. On the one hand, you are only accepted. So sounds like a personal fast, a private fast. You accepted to fast on a certain day. So on the one hand, you really accepted only not to eat and drink, and you're not eating and drinking. You're just tasting. Or perhaps the acceptance of a fast includes any type of food enjoyment, and there you have food enjoyment. He says it's fine. Go ahead and taste. We learned the same in a braysa. A taste, you don't have to make a bracha. You don't have to make a bracha before you're tasting some food. And if a person's in a fast, it's also fine because it's the same thing. It's not defined as eating. How much can you taste and it's not considered eating? So in volume of food or drink. Ravami Ravasi Tami Achi Raviyasam. So we use their example. They actually used to taste up to a revis. It was a liquid up to a revis, like the amount you need for Kiddush. So it's a significant amount of soup if you think about it.
Is that for all types of fast? Like something a self-imposed fast, or like actually a fast like Yom Kippur or whatever? You can actually taste food.
Yeah. Yom Kippur for sure not, because there we say it's more than just a fast. Like there's an inui involved. You're supposed to lick yourself and.
You can't swallow it anyways. You have to
right, for a chayla we say, do you do pachas mikashir, you do less than the amount. But a regular person who's not sick, I don't think on Yom Kippur you'd be able to take advantage, because we say chatzi shir is also aser. So even if the shir is on Yom Kippur, it's a gregaris, but even a
chola is going to swallow it. Here he's spitting it out.
No, he's swallowing here.
Oh, yes.
It says here that he's spitting it out.
It says we're only tasting.
But does he actually say the word spitting
it? According to though prohibited, even if it's not swallowed, since it's more than a reason, according to this Mandomer, is considered a benefit, even though he's spitting it out.
Okay. Maybe I understood he was swallowing it. If he's spitting it out, and then we're saying up to revis, but then more than revis.
Others hold that one may place the full revis in his mouth one time, so long as he's confident that he will not swallow it.
Okay. So
on a general day, never mind fast day. If somebody says that you want to taste a little drink or something, you don't make a shah call just to want to taste that. If you know in advance it's less than revias.
I mean, I guess according to what Dr. Blau was saying, you're not even swallowing it.
No, let's say swallow. It tastes fine.
Tasting
Well,
means
it's
not.
If one intends to swallow, no matter what the amount, he must recite a blessing.
There you go.
If he will not swallow, he does not recite a blessing.
Matter settled. So yeah, any swallowing, whatever you want to call it, you have to make a bracha, and you can't do it on a fast day, and all the rest of it. Omar Rav, Kol Anaisin Shalom Lechaver Kaidim Shispal. If you give shalom to your friend for davening Shachris in the morning, Kilu Asau Bama. It's as if you made a Bama, on a private altar, which you're not allowed to do. Shnemer Chadlu Lecha Min Ha'adam Asher Nishama Be'apoy Kiva Men Nechshavhu. So it says, prevent yourselves from the man which has a soul in his nostrils. Ki, what is he worth? So they changed the reading, not from bameh to bama. What you're turning him into a bama. Al tikri bameh el bama. Ushmul amar bama chashavta lezev v'loyla alayka. Why are you considering him, and you're giving him shalom, and before you do that to Hashem? Masi Rav Sheshes. Beprakim. So we have a question from everything we were learning until now. The prakim, we say in Kriya Shema, in between the paragraphs, shoel mipnei kavod, you can initiate the shalom if there's kavod involved, like to a rabbi, umeshiv to umeshiv, and you can respond. Tirgama, so this is before Shemayin Esrei. So before you're davening, you're already greeting your rabbi, your friends, whatever it is, you're talking. You're saying hello.
Or else we wouldn't be debating it.
Yeah. This whole conversation is before Shemayin Esrei, and you're saying hello. Tirgum Rav Abba b'mashkim lepischai. So Rav Abba says we're talking about where is it wrong is where you go out of your way to greet somebody, but where he goes over to you or you bump into each other as opposed to an intentional going over to say hello. That's where it's okay to say hello. And even when you say hello, it's not supposed to be Shalom Aleichem. You're supposed to just say in English or Aramaic, Tzafra Tava, or whatever. But you're not supposed to say actually Shalom Aleichem before Shemayin Esrei.
Greetings and salutations.
Yeah.
As you walk into the shul here, people say hi. You don't ignore them.
Yeah. So if it's, let's say, someone you didn't see in a long time, so usually you want to say Shalom Aleichem. No Shalom Aleichems before Shachris, even if you're bumping into each other.
They say hello to you.
Yeah, but that's still English. They say hello to you, hello back. Or whatever language. That's also no good. Yeah, those magic words are no good. Omer Rav Idi bar Avin, Omer Rav Yitzchak bar Ashian. Asur lo la'adam la'asais chafatzav kaidim shispel. You're not supposed to do your job, your work before you daven. Shneimar tzedek lefanav yalech v'yaseim l'derech pe'amav. So tzedek, you should be makdik Hashem. That's the davening, and then you should go take care of your needs. You should go on your way. Anybody who davens and then goes on his trip, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hashem will do what you want, and you take care of your needs. So trips should be after davening, and your jobs should be after davening. If you sleep 7 days without a dream, Nikra Ra, it's a bad sign, you're called bad. Shenemer, as it says, V'saveh Yalin Bal Yipaked Ra. So they want to read it, it's not V'saveh, as in satiated, but they read it as Sheva, El Sheva. So 7, he is not getting visited. Bal Yipaked. He's not getting remembered. So Yipaked is remembered, and that's referring to a dream where, I don't know, there's a bit of nevu in a dream, that sort of thing. So he has a different drush in the same pasuk. Anybody who satisfies himself with Torah and then he goes to sleep, he won't hear bad news. So again, same pasuk, just a different drasha coming out of it. Either it's not good to be too many nights without dreams, or good to go to sleep with after learning something. Eluhain bein haprakim. Amar Rabba Amar Rabbi Yechanan Halacha Rabbi Yehuda the Amar Bein Elekeichem Lemes V'Yatziv Lo Yafsik. So he said there was a machlekes if in between the end of Shema and Emes, if that's considered Bein Aprakim, in between the paragraphs. So he says the halacha is like him, like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's not in between, and therefore you're not supposed to stop unless it's whatever is okay for Be'emza. You're allowed to stop, I suppose. Amar Rabba Rabbi Yechanan, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason of Rabbi Yehuda that you have to combine the words Hashem Elokeichem with the word Emes, and you can't stop? Because it says in a different pasuk, V'Hashem Elokeim Emes. So you see elsewhere that they describe Hashem this way, Hashem of truth. Therefore, in Shema also, even though the Emes is not part of the psukim there, but we combine it with the next thing, the Emes V'Yatziv or Emes V'Emunah. After you've combined Emes with your Shema, do you repeat it again for the first bracha after Shema? Because that's where it was originally placed. Do you repeat it or not? He says you do. You don't. And we don't. Well, but it's not like, he's going to say the last three words again. Right, but for the rest of us, we're not going to repeat the word emes when we start emes v'yatziv. There was some chazan who got up in front of Rabbah. Shami Rabbah damer emes emes. He heard it twice. Trei zimni. Rabbah call emes emes tapsilai. This guy's got a stutter. He's saying the word emes so many times. So he obviously didn't approve. Rabbi Yoseph Kame Malia Hashmaitza. How good is the following halacha that I heard? Techiyaser of Shmuel Bar Yehuda Amar Amri b'Marava. They say in Eretz Yisrael, Arvis, when they're davening Ma'ariv, Daber el Bnei Yisrael. When they say the third paragraph of Shema, so they have a quickie version. They say Daber el Bnei Yisrael ve'Amart Alehem. Then they skip Ani Hashem Elokeichem Emes. So they skip everything in the middle. They say the beginning, and they say the last few words, and that's it. They skip everything in the middle because tzitzis, which is the topic of the third paragraph of Shema, doesn't apply to the night. Omer le'abaye ma'mal yusa. What's so good about this halacha? V'ha Amar Rav Kahana Amar Rav. He says lo yaschil. Don't even start the third paragraph. You shouldn't even say the beginning of it. V'im hischil. But if you did start it, Gomer, then you have to say the whole thing. So yes, he says. So this opinion is saying differently that you shouldn't say it at all. But if you started, you have to say the whole thing. But what they're doing in Israel was starting it, not finishing it. They're starting it and skipping to the end. You're going to say that when you just say the words ve'amart alehem, you're not actually starting that paragraph because you're not getting into the actual content of that paragraph. V'omer of Shmuel bar Yitzchak Amarav daber b'nei Yisrael la'aviyaschala v'amart alehem haviyaschala. The daber b'nei Yisrael, that part's not considered starting, but the part v'amart alehem, that is considered starting. So, and in Israel they were saying the words v'amart alehem, so they started. They have to say the whole thing now. No, those in Israel of that minhag, they did not consider the words v'amart alehem to be starting that paragraph. Therefore, they were not obligated to say the whole thing. Until you actually say those words v'asulam tzitzis, then you would actually be considered starting. So there's differences of opinion what's considered starting. We're actually going to start because in Israel they were starting, they said up to ve'amart alehem, so we're not going to say any less than them. But since we hold that ve'amart alehem is already considered a beginning of that paragraph, because that's how we differ in opinion from those in Eretz Yisrael, so then we're going to say the whole thing, and that's basically what we do is based on. Because we want to start just like they started, but we have to finish because we consider that as starting. Because he says don't start, but if you did, you have to complete the whole thing. Ani Hashem Elokeichem tzarech leimer emes. Lo yamar ani Hashem Elokeichem ein tzarech leimer emes. So the whole next paragraph of Emes Ve'emuna, you do not have to say that unless you're saying Ani Hashem Elokeichem. So if you don't say the third paragraph of Shema, and therefore you won't be saying Ani Hashem Elokeichem, you're also not even going to be saying that whole next paragraph of Emes Ve'emuna, right? So basically you're really cutting down Meir by a big chunk. So the Gemara asks, how can you cut down Meir so much? But you have to mention Yetzias Mitzrayim. So now that you don't have the third paragraph of Shema, and then the first bracha following Kriya Shema, you're not saying either of them, so where's Yetzias Mitzrayim? So the Gemara says, you'll say a substitute for that. Da'amar, thank you, Hashem, you took us out of Egypt, you redeemed us from slavery, you did miracles, and we sang to you. So it's just a short version of the fact that there's Yetzias Mitzrayim without having to go through the third paragraph of Shema and the paragraph after that. So why does Shema come before V'aya? So we have other reasons in the Gemara. It makes sense. It's logical that Shema should come before V'aya im Shemaya for another reason than what we saw in the Mishnah. Shezel el-Maid v'zel el-Ameid. Because Shema talks about learning Torah, and V'aya im Shemaya is about teaching Torah. And it makes sense, you got to learn it before you could teach it. V'aya im Shemaya le'Vayomer. That makes sense that the V'aya comes before Vayomer, Shezel el-Maid, or they change it to Lil-Ameid. This paragraph is about teaching Torah, V'aya, V'zel asais, and then the third paragraph is about doing mitzvahs. So that's the order in terms of priority: learning, teaching, doing. Asut. So the Gemara asks, Atu Shema lil-Maid isbei lil-Ameid v'lasais leisbei. Does Shema only have learning but doesn't have teaching and doing? V'haksi v'shinantem. The first paragraph talks about teaching. It says v'shinantem, which is teaching. Ukshartam uchsaftam. We have mitzvahs as well. Put on your tefillin, put the mezuzahs up. V'su v'ayayim shemaya l'lameid de isbei v'lasais leisbei. The second paragraph, it only has teaching Torah. It doesn't have actually mitzvahs. V'aksiv ukshartam uchsaftam. We also have tefillin, mezuzah. We have lots of mitzvahs there. Elachi kamar bedinu shetikdam. Shema levayam shema. Shema should come first. Why? Shezel l'maid lami lasais. It's got all three: learning, teaching, doing. V'ayam shema levayamer. The second paragraph should come before the third. Shezei yishbel l'lamed v'lasais. V'yamer ein v'lasais. Because V'aya has teaching and doing, whereas V'yamer only has doing, only has mitzvahs like tzitzas. V'teipuklei mit Rabbi Yosef ben Karcham. Why did you have to run off and go to some other reason? What's wrong with the reason from Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, like we saw in the Mishnah? So the Gemara says, Chad avoid kamer. You're right, we have more than one reason. We have the Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, which we'll repeat, and we have this other one we just saw now. Chad kideshi kabel aval malchus shemaim techila v'achar kechi kabel ol mitzvahs. Like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, first in Shema, Shemi mekabel malchus shemaim, the basics, you accept upon yourself, and then you're mekabel the ol mitzvahs. And then the following things, like the things we just saw, that's another reason why the order is appropriate. Rav Mashiyadeh, Rav washed his hands, V'kara Kriya Shema, he read Kriya Shema in Shachris, V'anach Tefillin, then after Kriya Shema he put on his Tefillin, V'tzalin, then he davened Shemayna Esrei. So the Gemara says, V'echi avid hachi. How could Rav do that? We learned in a Braisa for kuch lemeis bekever, a person who's busy digging. A kuch was like they buried them in the walls of the cave. So the kuch is the hole in the wall. It kind of looks like the way it is in a morgue. Right. Either way, so if you're digging a kuch for a deceased bekever, pater mikriya shema because you're busy with a mitzvah. So you're isik b'mitzvah pater min a mitzvah umin a tefillah. I mean, it's tefillin. If you don't have to daven shachris or put on tefillin until you're finished your mitzvah, you call mitzvah muris b'tayah. Because this is a mitzvah you can't delay either, because I guess you have a body waiting to be put there. He giyazman kriya shema. and the Kriya Shema comes, it says, get out of the cave. Oile v'noitel yadav, wash your hands, menich tefillin, put on the tefillin, ukayir Kriya Shema, spell. So there's a steer right away in the brisa which the Gemara addresses. Hagufa kasha reisham pater. First you tell me he's off the hook, and then it says a second later that he's chayiv if he gives money. He's got to get out of the cave and take care of shachris. So the Gemara says like halakasha seifa betrei v'reisha b'chad. Two situations. There's one person. There's two. If there's two people, so then one guy could take over and he can go daven. Yikol makam kashi l'rav. There's a question over here because here it says you put your tefillin on before Kriya Shema, just like we do. Rav. So the Gemara says Rav. That's the question, right? They're asking about the tefillin. Yeah. So the Gemara says, Rav Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha Svirle, Da'amar Ol Malchus Shemaim Techilam, V'achar Kachol Mitzvahs. He held, first you should accept, like our Mishnah, the logic in our Mishnah, why Shema comes before Vayah. So we're using the same logic to say, don't even do mitzvahs until you first do Ol Malchus Shemaim with Shema. So therefore, he said Kriya Shema before actually doing the mitzvahs, not just talking about all mitzvahs.
But we say that early Shema, that you can do that before you put on your tefillin. At first, there's the. Some people don't say it, but that little one there.
You don't usually do that.
I don't know the answer to that.
Usually put on.
I don't know the answer to that. But anyway, we'll see. The question with Rav is still hasn't been dealt with properly yet. So the Gemara says that's not a good answer. That's talking about things that you're doing by kriya, by davening. So this davening comes before that davening because of the topic, of the content of the davening. However, kriya l'asiyah mishamisle, how can you apply Rabbi Yeshua to a case of a kriya like Kriya Shema to actual mitzvahs, actual doing of a mitzvahs like tefillin, which is what we're trying to extend it to in this situation with Rav. You put tefillin on after Shema. V'sumi k'savar lak Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha. Does he hold like Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha? V'amar Rav Chia bar Ashi zimnin segina v'kimna k'mei de Rav. Many times we were before Rav. Umakdim amashi yadei. He got up early. He washed his hands. Umevarech, and he made brachas. I don't know, birkas hatayra. Umasni lan pirkin. Then he taught us. He gave us a shir. Umonach tefillin. He put his tefillin on. V'hader kari Kriya Shema. So here Rav himself does the tefillin before the Kriya Shema. So if you're saying that in principle the Kriya Shema has to come before the tefillin, so how come Rav is putting on the tefillin first in these stories? And if you're going to say the reason why he put on tefillin before is because he wasn't allowed to say Kriya Shema at that time, what is the testimony of Rav Chia bar Ashi coming to teach us? So the Gemara says, no, the Chiddush in this story has nothing to do with the Tefillin and the Kriya Shema. That's Lapukim iman da'amar lemishnei tzarech levarach kamashon daf lemish tzarech levarach. The significance of that story is really for a different matter, that you have to make birkas hatayra even when you're teaching Mishnayos. Because there's an opinion that says for Mishnayos you don't have to make birkas hatayra. That opinion says only for like Chumash. Either way, what do we do with Rav? Because one time he's putting on tefillin before Kriya Shema, one time after. So he says shluchahu davis. The shliach, the fellow who was supposed to bring the tefillin in the previous story, he didn't bring it. So Kriya Shema was coming and going, so he had no choice. So he had to say Kriya Shema, and then when the tefillin arrived, then he put it on. But nothing to do with like a principle of delaying tefillin until after Kriya Shema. Omer Ula. If you say Kriya Shema tefillin, and this is why I'm not sure to answer your question about for the early Kriya Shema. I don't know if it applies to that or not. Kilu made edu sheker b'atzmai. A person who says Kriya Shema tefillin, it's as if you're testifying falsely, literally about yourself. It doesn't mean about yourself. It means about Hashem, but we just say it in a nice way. Because it's like you're saying, you have a mitzvah of tefillin, and you're not even putting it on. So it's as if you're denying the mitzvah in action, even though you're saying it in words. It's as if you bring a korban oila without the mincha that always accompanies it. because you're not complete. It's incomplete mitzvah, just like an oila without a mincha is incomplete. So Kriya Shema without the tefillin on is incomplete. V'zevach b'nesachim, same thing. Zevach without the wine, it's also incomplete. Go ahead.